Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let's give like 3 extra minutes for more participants to join the event. So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Yeah, so by 3:09, we will join back to commence the event. Thank you. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on post World Urban Forum 12, how developing countries can move forward, can move from resolution to reality. This event is jointly organized by the City Visionaire in conjunction with the Young Planners Forum of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. My name is Adeniro Ibrahim Ademola, and I will be your host and moderator for today's section. We are thrilled to have you join us for this important discussion about translating global resolutions into practical strategies for developing countries. So we'll be starting in a few minutes. Please ensure that your microphones is muted during the session to avoid disruption so that we can have a inch-free conversation. So before I go on, I will be the one to give the welcome address. So today, good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. Like I said, the title for this webinar is Post World Urban Forum 12, How Developing Countries Can Move from Resolution to Reality. So on behalf of City Visionary Initiative, Urban Development and Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Young Planners Forum, I would like to thank you all for joining us. Today's event will explore practical approach for developing countries to turn the global resolution from the World Urban Forum 12 into actionable solution. Because we believe that this conversation is vital to advance the World Urban Forum and urban developmental goals across the global south. Now, it's my honor to introduce that today we'll be having an invited guest, and we have three panelists that will anchor the discussion section. So without further ado, I will introduce our panels now. So so please hold on. I'm trying to share my screen for where I have the pictures of our panelists. So our first panelist is urban planner Grace Kimaru. Urban planner Grace is an urban planner dedicated to fostering sustainable development and community empowerment. Our panelist, urban planner Grace, is the founder of Foster Green CBO, leading impactful conversation projects. She is passionate about urban resource management, youth development, and environmental advocacy with active involvement in capacity building. So our next, sorry. So our second panelist, in the name of planner Julian Sanziman. Apologies if I did not pronounce that correctly. So he is a certified urban planner also. He's from Rwanda. He's the founder of the Next Gen Urban Link Hub. He's an extensive and experienced urban planner through leading and involving in land use planning projects. He's also a researcher with over 6 publications. So the next and the final person on our panelist is town planner Omobolanle Akinola. Town planner Omobolanle Akinola is presently a PhD candidate undergoing his doctorate degree. She's also a registered town planner, and she also engaged in freelance writing. She champions sustainable urban planning, career development, and youth empowerment in Nigeria through impactful initiative and research. And finally, our guest speaker, town planner Olubenga Ashiru, he is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner. Is presently also the ex-official 2 of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, and is a strong advocate for planning awareness through the Voice of a Planner, an online platform that is very popular on social media platform, particularly Facebook, where he talks about urban planning. is also the immediate past National Secretary of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner. So without further ado, because we are trying to make today's event as brief and as insightful as possible, I will pass the presentation to our invited guests to give his presentation. And after following his presentation, we will have the opportunity for our panelists to engage in some interactions with him so that we can have an even wider understanding of the topic of discourse today. So following that, we will have the opportunity to ask our invited guests questions around the topic of today's event. And that's will be that. So while he gives his presentation, if during the presentation we have questions, we can as well drop them in the chat box where our panelists can pick them up and make use of that during the panel discussion section. So without further ado, I will hand over the microphone to our invited guest speaker for today, Tamplana Ulugbenga Ashiru.
Yeah, good afternoon. Tamplana Grace, Tamplana Julian, and Tamplana Kiola, the panelists. We appreciate you, and I would also like to say thank you to City Visioneer for this opportunity again, for us to brainstorm and discuss about urban planning, about humanity, about what is required for us to do as a people to move forward. The topic is post World Urban Forum 12, how developing countries can move from resolution to reality. I don't want to assume that everybody knows what World Urban Forum is. I don't want to assume, because some of the people here are not in the build sector, but they are just interested in coming online to join us. So I'll be taking some of your time a little by just giving you a brief that World Urban Forum is an international gathering that focuses on urban issues and convened by the Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlement Program. World Urban Forum aims to address global challenges such as unaffordable housing, rising costs of living, climatic change, and ongoing conflicts. The 2024 WUF12 with the team, it all starts at home, local action for sustainable city and community. It's one of the largest gatherings of participants with over 25,000 participants and 182 countries registering their interests, and they participated in the forum. The key focus of WUF12 included housing our future, cities and climate crisis, one of the things that we need as a, as a developing country is power. So NEPA just took light. So just let's maintain what we have on the screen while they restore the power back. Now, stronger together, finance implications and financial requirements in putting some of these things together, then putting people first in the digital age, that means planning with the people. Now, the major aim is how it will start locally and how it will start together. Let me start from how it starts locally. Now, it recognizes that the role of subnational governments and call for a whole of society, that means all government bodies, needs to empower local stakeholders in fostering citizen engagement in all policy that has to do with the aims of World Urban Forum. It also talks about how we should start together, but empowering local stakeholders, encouraging citizen participation, and making sustainable development more responsive to local needs, positively impacting community and sprawling mega city alike. And lastly, it has to start now. The calls are made to collectively address global challenges, such as rising poverty and inequality, climate change, armed conflict, and the digital divides. Before we proceed further, I would like to call our attention to that major thing that the SDG that we all agree on is roughly 5 years before the deadline. The question now is how far with developing countries. And that's why I believe that this discussion is timely and it is better with the title from resolutions to how we can move forward and make sure that it is practicable. It all starts at home is one of the key contents of this year WUF that says about extending beyond the physical structure that shelter us. It encompasses this cultural, social, economic, and environmental dimension that defines our community. Having given a background of what Urban Forum is all about and what it is all about this year, talking about how it starts now, how it starts at home, and how it starts locally, and all of us must be involved in it because it must start together. I will now go down straight to the resolutions. And what are the resolutions? Resolution 1, it calls for urgent action to address the global housing crisis. Thereby, we have to take so many things into consideration that the 2030 agenda to achieve poverty eradication, how visible is it? That's number 1 call. Number 2 call is in achieving global goals through local action. This requires effective localization in line with national frameworks and community priorities, anchored in multi-level governance through meaningful cooperation among all stakeholders. I have a picture that was shown, next slide. Yeah. If you are talking about housing provision, if you are talking about global housing crisis, yes, these are pictures or images from the city of Kairos. When looking at those houses, yes, they are huge. But my analysis while in Cairo reflects and shows that the condition of these houses are not something we write home about. In terms of infrastructural facilities, some of these structures are nothing but just shelter because of the space, because of the provision for facilities, and some of these things are just focusing on revenue. Is this adequate housing? And these are one of the things that the call and the resolutions are. The call number 3 in the resolution is to call for sustaining a systemic representation of local actors at all levels. Localization can only happen when all relevant stakeholders are involved or are included. The youth has a role to play, the women has a role to play, the disabled has a role to play, because it's key for local action, because they are stakeholders. There's also need to call for sustained and systematic representation of communities as political actors in local and national discussion-making process. Don't forget that I earlier talked about the crisis that has engulfed so many parts of the world. The question is, why are we having this crisis? It might be as a result of non-involvement in decision-making. Call number 4 talks about sharing urban space and opportunities inclusively. That means you have to reach out to every community at all levels and leaving no one behind. We should all have access to public space, infrastructure and services, and economic opportunity for all essential for inclusive cities. Call 5 talk about urban planning to deliver better local outcome. A holistic approach needs to be put in place to the social, economic, and economic functions of land and the continuum of land rights as a key. Call 6 is talking about unlocking finance for cities and communities. How do we develop when there is no finance in place? So how do we get this finance to assess all those resolutions? These are things I will be talking about later, but I just want us to have a brief idea of what all those resolutions taken at WUF12 is all about. Call 7 is talking about ensuring equity and justice for sustainable cities. That means we need to promote equal access to housing services and economic opportunities, and actively addressing systematic inequalities that hinder full participation in city life. Call 8 calls for leveraging local and grassroots data for decision making. It is important because of the bottom-up data should be recognized and integrated in urban planning. Call 9 talks about call for harnessing culture and heritage as an asset for sustainability. There is nobody that doesn't have his own culture, norms, and value. And there is need for us to focus on this, to recognize this in our design and decision making. It will be wrong for you to neglect our differences. We need to understand our differences, appreciate our differences, work on our differences, and use our differences in achieving our goals. And Call 10 talks about calling for building coalitions and alliance from alliance to scale local impacts. Empowering local actors through those partnership and coalition is a powerful tool for addressing community specific challenges while aligning with broader national and global goals. And those are just the calls, the resolutions. Now, as a developing countries, how do we key into this? How can we, as a country, benefit by interpreting this resolution to what we actually require? Now, making a resolution to reality can be interpreted in a few ways, depending on the context you are looking at it. You can look at it from the conceptual interpretation, that is aligning goals and reality, adapting to circumstances, and finding a balance. You can also look at it from the practical applications, that is goal setting, problem solving, or personal growth. And I will focus more on that practical applications for developing nation. Number one, I think it is time for us to localize and make use of indigenous materials if we actually want to solve the call one of housing crisis. We need to make use of local materials in our construction industries. Have we not wondered why developing countries like us that have access to timbers, to wood, to clay, to mud, but we neglect those local materials and did not put more pressure in making sure there is a lot of research of converting those materials for building construction so that housing can be available for all. But we focus more on concrete buildings. Africa, developing countries, are known to have a way of building their houses before now. And that shows in the pictures, images around us about old buildings that we have in the system. What are we doing about them? What are we actually saying to those materials, taking them to the next level in the developmental process of our house? If we as a country or as a developing country wants to actually solve the problem of housing crisis, then we need to look at the process of using our local materials for building construction. The structure for land allocation, all of us could agree that in this part of the world, it's very difficult to access land because the process is tedious. We need to review those structures so that individuals can have access for housing constructions. If we actually want to solve the call from the World Urban Forum 12 of 2024, we need to encourage and restructure mortgage housing process. In developing economy, what we have noticed over the time is everybody wants to build his own house. What happened to the mortgage process? What are the interest rates? What are the payment terms that I can easily go into an institution and I can have access to housing and I don't need to construct or disturb myself about building a housing unit that I can go into an agreement for 99 years. And after I'm through, somebody else take over the property. We need to look at that mortgage housing process and what we can do, because in developing world, it is very common that individuals wants to build their house rather than go into mortgage. We need to start adapting adequate technology in the construction industry. I've used Nigeria as a case study. Now that it's very difficult for you to have access to cement in your building industry because of the cost and because of the financial economic crisis, what do? How can we look for technology that can sustain us if it is difficult to import building construction equipment? What are we doing to make sure that we make use of what we have locally in providing solutions for all identified problems? Adaptation of local architectural design for local constructions. I will make an example with one of the banks that we have in the country that actually make sure that they adopt architectural design that fits into the community wherever they are setting their bank. Most of the designs that we make use of, are those things sustainable? Are those things actually our need? Or it's just as a result of my choice? Instead of need, we go after what is called want. And that's why we are having problems, because we go after a building that we might not be able to sustain, that we might not be able to construct, and might not provide the required housing needed. We need to look at a review for all the construction permits, laws, and regulations. In this part of the world, in developing countries like us, emphasis is on using construction permits to make more money. And that makes it unaffordable for people that want to actually go into that construction line. I know we might have heard it over time from different platforms that you will need about 13 agencies, sometimes 14 agencies before you could get a permit to construct a building. We need to review this if you are actually serious about working on those resolutions and making them a reality. We need to encourage government policies to embrace communal efforts and actions in the developmental process of any community. And I cite an example with a first-class traditional ruler, the Oni of Ife, which is Ojaja Park, where he makes sure that all material used for the construction are locally sourced. And all the material that they are making use in that park are local materials. That is a better way in providing solution to identify problems. When we talk about resolutions, then there should be what is called a global goals. But do we have an adequate publicity for these global goals? How many people are aware of what the SDG says? How many people are aware of what they need to do about the climate? Do they even know what's called climate change? There should be adequate focus on publicizing these goals for us to achieve the results from the resolution. If a resolution is focusing on some of these goals and there is no adequate publicity, then there will be another problem, which is acceptability of those goals. If there's no publicity, if there's no knowledge about the goals, I can't accept it. So developing countries needs to give enough publicity for these goals. The recent COP that took place came out with some challenges about some countries not accepting what is stated in terms of us achieving a climate change, because the funding is being questioned. And that means acceptability is not 100%. And when acceptability of a goal is not 100%, then there will be low commitment in terms of government policy. So one of the resolutions for developing country is to publicize these goals, one, and accept it. And when you accept it, you push it to the public for proper acceptability, so that there could be policy implementation for any of those goals. We need to embrace the bottom-top approach, the bottom-top policy formation and implementation approach. Now, what are we saying here? The era of developing countries just loading it over their people. Yes, it must come from the presidency and it has to go to all the states. That is what affects the implementation. So from the stage of policy formation to its implementation, it should be from the bottom to the top. Adequate public participation, public inclusion, public engagement should be from the bottom to the top. Adapting the town planning golden rules. And what's that town planning golden rule? Plan with the people and not for the people. Now, another picture that I'm showing you here is one of the transportation images that I got while in Cairo. And you can see the mixture of what happens in the past and now. The donkeys are still on the road. The horses are still on the road. The cars are still on the roads. The motorcycles are still on the road. The intention with this is to make sure that there is transportation for all, irrespective of who you are. What I'm saying here is that developing countries in Africa, all over the world, could come in locally, source for the effort locally, and make use of the technology developed locally to solve the local problems, thereby giving it an international recognition. Next slide. Incentive to encourage urban agriculture. Yes, there's food crisis, and we can see that all over the place. So what do? Developing countries like us in Africa needs to engage in urban agriculture, and because it is this effort that will promote socioeconomic independence among urban dwellers. The rural dwellers cannot provide adequately the needs of the urban dwellers. So the urban dwellers need to be involved in the production exercise. And that's why we need to give incentive to encourage urban agriculture. I know some states have adopted that, whereby they will provide the seeds for you, they will ask for your space, and they will give you training to encourage urban agriculture. Adoption of inclusive plan. If plans are not inclusive, definitely it will not be accepted. So inclusive plan means calling all stakeholders. Everybody needs to be involved in the process. And this starts from the elementary stage of gathering data for the purpose. Less effort on classification in the provision of infrastructure facilities and amenities. In developing what our effort so far has been in classification. These are the elites. These are the high income earner. These are the low income earner. And this did not go far in the development we see around us. And that is why there is differences in the land uses. Somebody needs to live somewhere and we travel about 7-8 hours before getting to his place of work because there is no provision for his type of income anywhere around where he works. So there should be less effort in classification. Everybody should come on board, and that will promote the inclusivity we are talking about. Adaptation of planning concepts in consonance with emerging trend in urban planning. Planning should not be that fixed. It should be flexible. The development plan should be flexible. So what are we saying here? Developing countries in getting the resolution of rights to reality to adopt plans that are flexible. It should not be, yes, it must be like this. As there is emerging trends in urban planning, emerging trends in the way people behave, then we need to start looking at our plan again. Some years ago, nobody knew we have what is called COVID. Nobody knows we have what is called monkeypox. But now that we are having some of those things, with the level of technology, we need to make sure that our planning context is in consonance with emerging trend of urban and regional planning. Planning policies to focus on welfareism and inclusiveness and not revenue collection. That is the major thing that is appealing to developing countries. There's nothing wrong in asking people to get their construction permits if certain criteria are met that are not even financial, that doesn't have these financial implications. Because it will be about welfareism, it's about providing service, it's about getting a good environment, because you are saving a lot by providing that environment. What do I mean? If people are able to get planning advice from government agencies free of charge, there won't be need for development control, there won't be need for you to be demolishing buildings, there will not be development of slums. So we should start being proactive by looking at planning policies that will focus on welfareism and not revenue collection. It is better to prevent than to be looking for the cure. Decision-making and policy formation on land use should be at the local level. Yes, because it happens at the local. And the effort should be what happened at the local level. Communal ownership of cities and community. There should be an enlightenment, a very strong one, to make citizens believe, own cities and community. When they believe that it belongs to them and not to government agency or to the kings or the rulers, then there will be more contribution from their part. Improvement in the sense of belongings of dwellers. And lastly, we'll talk about financial budgeting for implementation of development plan. There should be plans saying that this is what should go for preparation of plans, this is what should go for implementation of plans, and how the plans should be implemented. It should be part of the budget, not just money for transportation. Transportation from which transportation plan? Money for housing construction. Housing construction from which of the plan? It should be tied to something. And that is where we can be talking about being serious about implementing the resolutions. Equitable distribution of urban infrastructure and services. We are all aware that politicization of issue has been a bane of development countries or societies, whereby it is I before others. It is usually IBO concept and not based on equitable distribution of infrastructure and services. Social equity and inclusive of vulnerable people across spatial location is the last point that will make a developing country in making the resolution a reality. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much to our guest speaker, Planner Olubenga Ashiru. He has given an insightful presentation. So I think the next point on the agenda of today's meeting is the panel discussion. So our panelists will join now to have the discussion with our guest speaker. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Hello.
Yeah, hello. We
can
hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I first I appreciate Steve Visionaire for this opportunity just to be among the panelists for today. So my name is Julien Sanzman. Ibrahim said maybe he pronounced it somehow wrongly, but it's okay. It's Sanzman Julien. So I'm from Rwanda. So I'm an urban planner and also a founder of a hub called Next Generation Urban Link Hub. So as the panelist of today, so I first also come to what we saw in this presentation on what Ashilu presented about the 10 resolutions raised by World Urban Forum 12 in Cairo. So as he stated that or it starts at home. So as the developing countries, mainly urban planners, so we have to own our urban issues and even look how we can address them ourselves. So we have many urban issues that we have to address. And I hope this core, it's a core, but also associated with different urban challenges that we are facing, mainly in urbanization here in Africa, including lack of affordable housing or housing crisis, lack of participation, lack of urban spaces, and other different issues that we are facing mainly in developing countries, especially in our cities. So, as our topic says, how developing countries can move from resolutions to the reality. So we have seen different resolutions raised by World Urban Forum. There are 10, but how we can localize them to our local cities, because as Ashuru said, all actions start at our home, start at our plots, start at our individual land. So we need to address starting at our home. So on my side, as how we can address this, we have seen different urban challenges that we are facing, including inadequate housing, poor infrastructures. All those comes from overpopulation, including urban sprawl, environmental degradation, traffic, and transportation. I think and hope that all these challenges that we face in urban areas is the reason why the word urban forum listed or adopted all those 10 action to be taken into account to achieve mainly the SDG number 11, which compile all and solve all problems that we face in our urban areas, mainly in developing countries. So how we can localize all those challenges, those resolutions raised by World Urban Forum. So I can take an example. So everything start from political. So we cannot address challenge if we have a weak urban governance. So means if we strengthen our urban governance, starting from national up to local. So I think this governance will help us even to localize these 10 resolutions to achieve and address different urban problems that we are facing in developing countries. So the next maybe strategies to employ participatory either in community consultation, in decision making, implementation, starting from plan, even from feasibility studies of the plan up to the implementation. If there is lack of participations, so we cannot localize these 10 resolutions if we cannot engage and let the local people, local community to participate in our daily plans, in our daily projects. So we are planning as an urban planner, as at national level, but local communities are not and no longer engaged and even participate in the plans. So another way how we can localize this or these 10 resolutions is also as you know, developing big countries, we always have plans. We have these master plans. We have zoning and regulations. I think every countries have this. We have these local development plans. We have detailed plans for our cities, but the problem is the financial capacity because we have the mind, we have the dreams, because no one want maybe to see this traffic jam in the city, environmental challenges in the city, poor houses, poor infrastructure within the city. So what we are now lacking is ability or financial capacity to make our dreams into reality. So the way to make it easier with respect to our little financial capacity is to take our projects, our plans into phasing. So we can categorize our project into phasing, what we call phasing plans. Like if you plan this and this will be happen maybe in 30 years, we can make it in 3 phases according to our financial capacity. So I hope phasing is one of way to bring all those resolutions to our local level. Then and even use our local resources, especially in housing and even in different projects, to use our local knowledge, local materials to to solve different urban challenges that we always face in our cities. So I think this is what I have. I think I will add other things later when my other colleagues, other panelists also share their views on how we can localize all these resolutions raised by World Urban Forum 12. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Julian Zanzima. So next up, I will call our next panelist, Town Planner Grace Kimaru, to give a presentation as well, to share with us our thought also about the topic of presentation today. So maybe our panelists can take between 2 to 3 minutes to share their discussion so that we can be brief and also wrap up the meeting as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian. And good afternoon, good evening. It's actually 6 p.m. here in Kenya. So I'm delighted to be here. Thanks to our organizers. My name is Grace Kimaru. I'm from Kenya. I'm an urban planner. And I have a presentation. I don't know. I need to share it on Kenya's position on the resolutions that were made in Cairo. Yes. Mhm. And so the main focus areas at the World Urban Forum mainly were affordable housing, improvement on urban mobility, fostering resilient infrastructure, and of course, creating inclusive and equitable urban spaces within our urban areas. So in Kenya, the government of Kenya has really tried in doing that, but of course, we are facing various challenges in the implementation of urban development initiatives. And one of our main challenge here is limited resources, as other speakers have stated. So we are facing a lot of financial constraints when it comes to resource scarcity. And this has hindered investment in infrastructure and urban development projects. We've also been facing a high rapid urbanization rate where you get there is a lot of migration to urban areas, and this has caused a lot of pressure on existing infrastructure and services in our urban areas here in Kenya. Also, lack of capacity, where when coming up with these plans or urban development initiatives, there is lack of technical expertise. Yes, we have the planners, we have the architects, we have the quantity surveyors, but they are not really included in these initiatives or the development part of it. So again, there's lack of technical expertise in this, and we require trained personnel. Most of the planners who are here and probably the professionals in the built environment knows that we require this personnel to effectively implement urban development programs. And so as a country, we've come up with strategies for shaping the WUF outcomes. Number one, it's policy framework. When it comes to policy, our country or the government of Kenya has developed policies and frameworks to guide urban development. We have the National Urban Policy, and this policy focuses mainly on addressing key planning questions or key planning areas such as population trends, urban trends, and other urbanization aspects. We also have Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, and this by the UN Development System. It runs from 2022 to 2026, which is a very important policy when it comes to urban development here in Kenya. We also have the Kenya Habitat Country Program Document, 2023 and 2027. These are policy guidance for our country when it comes to mobilization of public and private sectors, so as to contribute to sustainable development in 4 major areas that are very critical. We know that land management is critical in urban development, access to housing and infrastructure, upgrading slums, of which there is a high rate of growing slums in here in Kenya, and also another sector that is really important and is highlighted in this policy framework is climate change, resilience, and disaster, which has really affected most of our urban areas. We have increased flooding, we have increased heat waves, which are affecting a lot of our urban areas here in our country. So when it comes to policy framework, the government of Kenya is really trying to come in handy. Also on the aspect of urban planning, where Kenya is implementing various spatial planning frameworks and zoning regulations to promote sustainable development and reducing urban sprawl. And these have been devolved in our local government. So we have this at the county government levels, where we have trained planners who are doing that. And so at the local level, there is very strict urban planning. Our government is also at the forefront in actively engaging the private sector. We have the public and private sector partnerships in leveraging our resources and expertise in urban infrastructure projects. Also, when it comes to innovative solutions, Kenya is embracing technology and innovative solutions to address waste management. For instance, there is the Circular Economy Innovation Cluster Program, in Nairobi that aims to reduce and prevent waste by incubating circular businesses in Nairobi. Nairobi is our capital city. We also have another program called Takataka ni Mali. Takataka in English is waste, ni mali is a resource. So in short, we are saying that waste is a resource. And so through this program, we've partnered with Safaricom that uses Internet of Things solutions for sustainable waste management. We also have waste aid program that is training the local communities in enabling have different separated waste collection centers within various urban areas in Nairobi, and also it's being implemented in other urban areas within the country. So for partnerships and community engagement in the implementation process, a Kenyan government is emphasizing so much in collaborative partnerships between government, civil society, and private sectors to achieve sustainable development goals. There is also community engagement, which is really important when it comes to urban development initiatives, because these communities knows their needs. And so we need to always include them when coming up with these development initiatives, so as they are able to align with the local needs and priorities of our people or the urban population. And of course, knowledge sharing and capacity building, which is very essential for effective implementation in enabling communities to learn from best practices and innovative solutions. So the projects that we have as a country in integrating sustainable and inclusive practices, we've had green building standards. Kenya is promoting green building standards to minimize environmental impact. We actually have the Kenya Green Building Society that supports sustainable building certifications. And this society guides construction projects towards resource efficiency. And you find that these green buildings help in reduction of energy consumption, and they're a way of creating healthier urban spaces. We also have the aspect of renewable energy, where Kenya has come up with various projects. We have the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project, which is financed by World Bank, and also the Sustainable Energy Technical Assistance Project, which aims at targeting at least 1.5 million people in urban areas. And by doing this, we aim to reduce dependency on fossil fuels. We also have the aspect of sustainable transportation, where we have various projects. We have the electrical buses project, which is called Basigo, electric buses. And they are within Nairobi City, which is our capital city. We've also had EPRA, that is the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority here in Kenya, has approved special tariffs for charging stations here in Nairobi. So we are trying to develop efficient and sustainable transport systems, including non-motorized transport. There is a policy here that is called the NMT policy for Nairobi in collaboration with UNEP, that is a UN environmental program, sorry. And we also have the projects under waste management. So all these four projects, 4 pillars, Kenya has various projects that we are implementing to see that we have been able to integrate the aspect of sustainability and inclusivity in line with the WUF outcomes. And so when it comes to monitoring and evaluation of these projects here in Kenya, there's of course the performance indicators, which are being used to track progress. We have regular data collection and analysis, which is very essential to monitor the effectiveness of these projects, and also the impact assessments, which are conducted to evaluate the social, economic, and environmental effects of urban development projects, that's ensuring long-term sustainability and community benefits. And as a wind up on my presentation, of course, we are trying to scale success stories to other developing countries where Kenya is being engaged in knowledge sharing. We share our expertise and best practices with other developing countries, the South-to-South cooperation. We're trying to promote collaboration and knowledge sharing between developing countries, thus fostering innovation and accelerating progress in urban development, and also global partnerships, which is really important with international organizations. As I've mentioned, we've partnered with UNEP, we've partnered with GIZ and development agencies to provide financial and technical support in scaling successful models. And so translating the World Urban Forum resolutions into action, for me, it requires collaborations at all levels, as stated in my presentation. And I believe that my country, Kenya, can lead by example in showcasing the innovation and resilient projects in urban planning. And I believe that together as a continent, because we are developing countries, together we can create cities that uphold the principles of inclusivity, sustainability, and prosperity. So thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to connecting to each one of you and see how we could collaborate to create sustainable and equitable urban futures in Kenya and also beyond, especially in our continent. So you can reach me through the listed emails there, or you can follow me on LinkedIn at Grace Kimaru. So thank you so much, and back to you, moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kampana Grace Kimaru, for the insightful presentation and sharing on what Kenya are doing towards the achievement of the Urban Forum goals. Without further ado, I will call on the next panelists, Omobolanle Akinola, to share our own discussion with us.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Kampala Akinola Omobolanle. Thank you so much. I really want to appreciate the visionary for giving us this opportunity. And I also want to thank our speaker, Tamplana Asher. Thank you for all the points raised. For me, and I also want to thank our audience. Thank you for joining. Yeah, for me, one thing that stood out for me is while Tamplana Asher was speaking, was about reducing agencies. Yeah, because I'm also affected by that. I'm a town planner, I'm practicing with Lagos State government, and yeah, I see these things is visible. You have to go through this department. When you are done with LASPA, you go to APCA, from there you go to material testing, from there you go to this. I feel if they can do such a way that it's just departments, let the government do everything. Let it just go through, do your job, do the last part, do the lab part. Just let me know once it's done. I come, I pick up my documents, and it's over. Why go through the stress of when I'm done there? I'll leave there. I'll go to this place. I'll leave there. I'll go to this place. Like, it makes it cumbersome, and it doesn't encourage developers to come into the country. That's one thing. So I really wish we had heads of agencies at this webinar so they can know some of this. And I know some of them know, and I know they are trying to find a way to make this work out. I know they are putting effort, for probably due to bureaucracies and all, which is experienced everywhere in the world. Maybe that's why it's not visible. I don't know. And then another thing is we are trying to move from resolution to reality. But then if we are to look at it, how many town planners in the world, or okay, let's say for example, Nigeria, I'm referring to Nigeria, how many of them are well educated, or how many of them are fast enough to actually understand the practice or what is required of them? Because from what I've seen, most town planners, after we've left school, the standards we've learned in school, we just keep going back to history. This is what is written in this book. This is what is said. This is what is done. This is what the law says. The law can be reviewed. This is what the layout says. The layout can be reviewed. Yes, you have made, the people that did the previous design, they've made mistakes. It can be reviewed, which is, I think this is why there is room for revisions, for review of master plans, review of regional plans. But then how many of these plans are being reviewed? Most of us, when we designed in school, I'm trying to take this back to school because I know there are some students here and there are those who are just coming out to practice now. Because this is one challenge I faced, trying to blend in. In school, when you design your layout, you just apportion land, this for secondary school, this for daycare, because it has to be in a neighborhood, because it has to be in my structure plan. But now the world has transcended. Like everywhere has been transformed. Land value in 2024 is not the same thing as land value even in 2023. It's not the same thing. So now, do you say I'm bringing in a multi-billion naira project that will make this place look to a world standard level, and they are telling me it cannot be done because we are trying to follow the standards, because we are trying to follow the layout? But I know bringing in this project will solve housing solutions. Bringing in this project will solve transport solutions. Bringing in this project, it will solve a lot of environmental issues. But because of the footprint, because of the standard that we have laid, that we are not ready to review, they say, this is not acceptable. The only thing you can have here is the school. And then the land is just there, waiting for the school that will come, because it's only for the school, because you've made that mistake. I think now, because I know of some areas in Nigeria that are trying to review plans to make it into mixed use, to encourage more of mixed uses. You can have a beauty, because the world is trending, architecture is trending, urban planning is trending. So I feel even we planners ourselves, we need to educate ourselves more. Yes, there are resolutions, but these resolutions, how many of us really know what is expected of us? Because for me, I feel after this World Urban Forum, when people came back, how many people from Nigeria went for the World Urban Forum? I don't think we had up to 5,000 town planners that represented the whole of Nigeria, of 200 million people, because whatever you plan is affecting 200 million people. So what is the representative factor that went? And then you came back. What is the feedback? Okay, now you've gone for World Urban Forum. How many departments did a training for other people in their agencies? Okay, we went to Cairo. We saw this, we saw this, we saw this. Is there a way we can adapt something like this? Okay, if we cannot adapt it, can we do a research if this can be done? Can we try to, that is where participatory planning comes in. Can we ask around? How can this work? We have Lagos, for example, even the whole of Nigeria, we have local governments. There are heads of local government. It's something that can be taxed to all local governments just to make findings to councils, to wards, to councillors. By breaking it down, you will get the data from everybody. It's simple. Okay, now we've gone for the World Urban Forum. For us to adapt something like this, because I don't see us being at the level of what is expected of us. On the Sustainable Development Goals, how many of these targets have we met? 2030 is just 6 years to come. How many of our targets have we met? So I think the major part is this educating part. It's beyond school, it's beyond the masters, it's beyond the PhD. I think there is a need for agencies to bring in more training for their professionals. Because you cannot expect professionals to give what they don't have. It's beyond what we learned in school. We can't remain in the past. You can't continue using history to forecast. We need to flow with trend. What is trending? Can it affect urban planning? What is trending? That is how I feel as a town planner. That is how I feel we should move. What is trending? How can this go? How can this move forward? Okay, now, for example, now we are trying to prioritize housing. For example, one of them is there was a point I wrote here about equitable distribution of urban infrastructures and services, which our speaker mentioned. The needs of man as economic status is insatiable. So bringing equality into play might seem a bit difficult, especially in a place like Nigeria. The affluent are not ready. Most of the affluent communities, they are not ready for a low, lesser income community around them. Even if it is around, there is like a boundary. There is that social disconnection between them. It's glaring, it's showing. But then, as urban planners, this is now the question for us. How can we blend it in? What can be done? I think this is where the question should be coming up, because Africa is vast. People will keep buying lands. The real estate agents, the real estate managers, they keep giving awesome designs, awesome buildings. At what cost? We as town planners, are we even considering how these designs and these buildings and these estates they are building, are we even concerned about the effect by 2030? According to the press conference, it was said that by 2050, the urban population will increase by 68%, like 68% of the world population will live in the urban area. How can we manage that? Even right now, we are struggling to survive. By the time 68% of the world population is in the urban area, how will the urban area survive? As it is now, biodiversity is already suffering. Then by 2050, what are we going to have? I think this is how urban planners should try to, that should be our drive. Because we can't say that, okay, the population can never be static. Urban poverty cannot remain as it is now. It will keep increasing. The wealthy, the number of affluent communities, it will keep increasing. Everything is increasing. So now we as town planners, how can we navigate our way through all this? How can we make the city still sane? How can we make the city still beautiful? How can we make the city still functional, irrespective of what will come? That should be what should drive us. And that, I think that is what can make all these resolutions into reality. Every call for action, that is what can make it come into reality. That's what I feel. And I think if all these, how do I put it? I think if all these things are done, if town planners can wake up to their real call, beyond professional town planners, even we in the academics, there are little courses that are online that can train students to be ready for the market. Because as you are coming out, you don't have to wait for until when government give me job. No, there are things you yourself, you can be an advocate for something on any of the SDG goals, any of these World Urban Forum call to action. Pick one, be an advocate for it. And that is how it is. If we have 100,000 town planners in Africa and 90,000 of us are advocating for a common cause, definitely these resolutions can be a reality. It can be a reality. Nobody is saying don't practice. Nobody is saying don't look for money and all. No, but that aside, what is your true call? You're a town planner. You're an urban planner. Just like I've always said, the urban space is our lab. We as urban planners, we are like surgeons, we are like doctors. So the urban space is our lab. We have a lot of space to practice. We have a lot of space to try things out. If it doesn't work out, we try again. If it doesn't work out, we try again. We are doctors and the city is our patient. If we just leave the city like that, just because we are chasing only money, why you can chase money while attending to the city? Hospitals make money, even while treating patients. So that's just an analogy. So I feel as urban planners, we need to take the city as a patient that needs our help, because we are at that stage now in the world. So I think if we can have that notion, if we can try to take the city as a patient and see ourselves not just as urban planners, but as doctors of the city, I guess it makes it easier to make these resolutions into reality. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Town Planner Omobalale Akinola, for your mind-provoking discussion and sharing. Without taking much of our time, I think we can go to the question and answer section. If we have any member of any participants that has a question or the other that we can signify by raising our hand or putting the questions in the chat box while I read it out to our panelists or to our invited guests to give a response to it. Okay, Dr. Noor has a question. So, Dr. Noor, you can unmute yourself to ask your question, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hi, we can hear you, Doctor.
Okay. Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Can
Yes,
you hear me?
we can hear you.
Yes,
We can hear you, Dr. Noor.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, fine. Mine is not sort of a question, but just a little bit of maybe a 1-minute contribution to some of the things that we talked about. And it starts this way. Can we really, really implement our policies and plans if we do not, first of all, understand the structural realities or the structural problems that face cities in the global south, like the ones we have in Africa? Now, the second aspect, which is what I like so much, the last speaker, she talked about we being doctors and the city being our patient. What that means is that no matter how enlightened our policies and plans are, if we do not understand the structural problems or realities that face our cities in Africa, we'll just be going around the cycle. No matter how beautiful your plans are, if you don't understand the structural forces, nothing will happen. And what are the structural forces or realities? I'm happy we have mentioned some of them. I will just sort of just underscore them briefly. One is the issue of access to land. Access to land is a major problem in cities of the South. Two is the issue of weak institution, which some of us has mentioned that. But thirdly, which is also very important, the issue of informality. Our cities are underlined by informality. That means that no matter the kind of policies or plans we're doing, informality must be part and parcel of that. We cannot treat informality like sort of a leprosy or leprosy. The informality is part of us. What we require is for us to have innovative policies and programs that integrate or make sense of informality. It's very important for us. And then fourthly, is also the issue of politics. I don't know whether we can say politics should be on the banner of planning or planning should be on the banner of politics. Either way you treat it is fine. But so long as you have all your beautiful plans and you do not understand the politics of the city, you just be going around circle. So it's important that some of these structural forces I talk about, the issue of access to land is important, the issue of informality is important, the issue of politics is important, the issue of the weak institutions is also important. But lastly, it's also for us to know that all the policies and plans you're making in your cities or in Africa, these plans have a connection with global happenings. Let me give an example with Abuja. I've been practicing in Abuja for the past 20 years. We make beautiful plans in Abuja, but sometimes our plans in Abuja are not implemented just because of one thing. global happenings, maybe in terms of changes in the market price of oil. And that affects all the things we do here. So the bottom line is, yes, we can do our plans. We can focus on the context. We can bring our context-led solutions because planning starts at home. But it's also dangerous for us to think that global happenings will not affect our plans. So by and large, these are just a few things that I wanted to bring up. But generally, the conversation has been wonderful, from Ashiru to the guy in Rwanda, to the lady in Kenya, and then to the last person who talks about the city being the patient and we being the doctors, and also the need for us to understand the dynamism of the city, which she talked about in terms of reviewing the plans, not holding on to plans, but seeing that each plan is a dynamic engagement. If we do all of that, we'll get our policy implemented and all that. So thank you all. It's a wonderful conversation. I just wanted to chip in some of these things. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Noor. Thank you for the wonderful addition. It has clearly had more contribution to what the panelists and the guest speakers presented today as regards the project topic. Thank you for the addition. And Dr. Noor, we are privileged to have you here in our midst. Doctor, I mentioned at the start of the event that this event is co-organized by the City Visionaire and the Young Planners Forum and of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner. So Dr. Noor is the National Public Relations Secretary for the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner, which is the parent body of the Young Planners Forum that's co-organized this event. So thank you so much, Dr. Noor. Thank you for
a pleasure.
Your wonderful
a pleasure
addition.
Always.
So do you have any other person that has a question or addition?
All right, can I make a comment? Yeah.
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Let me first appreciate my National Public Relations Secretary. That is in person of Town Planner. No, I won't call him Doctor. No, because I want that Town Planner to reflect anytime I mention his name. It's nice having you on the platform. Let me start from the presentation from Kenya. It was identified that there is need for funding. Beautiful program, beautiful strategies. But how will we fund this thing? And that is what we need to be looking at locally. And if you look at my presentation, I focuses more on the solutions that we help developing country, like us, like Kenya, like Ghana. We need to look inward. That's why it starts from home. It starts together. And we start locally. How do we address this identified problem locally and still maintaining global standard? You can go back through, that's why I love the contribution of Dr. No. I identify all those problems in my presentation, and I was talking about the solutions. Why can't we use our local materials for the construction? Why can't we look inward in the structure for land allocation? Why can't we encourage our mortgage housing system? Why can't we even develop our own technology? I wrote some years ago, their standard, our planning. Who developed the planning standards that we use today? In my country, for example, the Minister of Aviation is saying that he's bringing Japanese to develop our airports plan for us. How can a Japanese understand my culture, my norms, my value, and the need? And that's what Dr. Noor was talking about, understanding the politics. And I provided the solution by asking us to be bottom-top approach in policy formation and implementation. I would like to announce here, based on what the last panelist said, that NITP is doing wonderfully well. I'm aware of that because I just left an office as the National Secretary, that it is issues from resolutions like this that form major part of what we discuss at our mandatory development program, which takes place every year. And I can say it here based on information available to me that Nigerian Institute of Town Planners has put in a report in respect of the World Urban Forum 12. Now, we might not have 5,000 planners as expected by my sister because of the financial application. But the trainer method is being approached by the institute in solving some of those problems. It should be solution-driven discussion, having identified the problems over the years. Yes, the problems are there, but how can we get solutions to this problem locally, togetherness, and find a way of sustaining it? It's either we develop the strategy, or we transfer, or we seek for transfer for the strategies, or we remain at the same spot. Town planners, yes, part of our training is to look inward for the corrections, for the conflicts and co. But now we should expose ourselves in bringing solutions, practicable solutions to the table. And I think that is what this webinar is all about. And that was why I focused my energy more on looking for solutions. Because if we don't have the solutions, we continue to identify the problems. The title is How Developing Countries Can Move from Resolutions to Realities. And how we can move resolutions to reality is to identify our problems which have been done over years and bring in practicable solutions. I think that is the few I need to add now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamplana. Also, in addition, I just checked the messages now. I see that Toyin Bolukale, they have a question, they have a comment and a question. So please, can you mute yourself to ask the question or comment?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bolukale Toyin. I work with Lee City University. I'm a town planner. I joined the conversation at the beginning of the program, and I listened to town planner Ashiru Balogun. Sorry, not Ashiru Balogun, Benga Ashiru. Unfortunately, I couldn't listen to others, but I just want to ask some few questions and also make some contribution. Planning problems are wicked problems. We are all aware of that. And we should also know that town planners are service providers. We're supposed to enlighten the government. Don't forget that we don't implement the laws. We don't implement the policies. We're supposed to be policy advisors. But I think it's high time planners learned that they must be involved. How do I mean? We must be involved in advocacy, the educational, environmental education. In most of our schools, people are not taught, they are not aware about the environment. They are not even aware that we exist. A lot of students don't even know that there's a course called Urban and Regional Planning, which is a pity. So I think what we've been discussing about starts from the cradle. Why don't we start from the cradle and start advocating for inclusion of environmental knowledge, environmental education, the place of planning, the importance of planning, the consequences of not planning into our educational institution from the primary school level up to the tertiary school level. That is one. Number two, in different employment phases or spheres, are we making any move to make sure that planning education is inclusive? I'm not talking about studio work. Knowledge about planning. All other nations of the world, developed nations that we talk about, we go to visit for tourism, for whatever we go to, they sat down and planned. So we could see the importance, the significance of planners in those areas. So I think we need to do that. Then on the part of the government, most of what happens in Nigeria is because government does not have the political willpower, one. Then number two, there's what you call discontinuity. When Planners bring in ideas, and we're fortunate that a government in power takes our suggestions, wants to implement a policy. Once another government is coming in and doesn't believe in that dream, that policy will be chopped off. So we need to advocate that whatever government is in place, we're not after government. We're not after party, we're after implementation, continuity of things. There's a Yoruba adage that they say, "Okokomeka mororo." Someone is sweeping it. If you go to Dubai, some years back, 30 years back, Dubai was not the way it was. Somebody woke up, and the person that woke up and said, "I want this country to change," was not even a planner. So he sat down, called people together, and then we could see the impact of planning in that country. And within a short period of time, Dubai has taken over. Talk of tourism, talk of business, talk of whatever you have. Dubai has taken over. So I think planners too, we must sit down. We must understand the importance and the significance of planning in Nigeria, so that we can have a move forward. So the solution is within us. Don't let us look outside. The solution is within us. We must have some of us that must be involved in politics. Some of us must be in power, so that we can move planning to the next level. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your addition. Also, I think we have Mr. Aliu Adebayo, who is raising up his hand. But before I ask him to take the stage, I would like to read what Mr. Mohire Roja has put in the chat box, that yes, there is a need to integrate local solution instead of copy and paste solutions. Also, he mentioned that how to encourage high densities in some of our cultures when most people wish to build. I think this is a question, that how can we encourage high densities in some of our culture when most people wishes to build a single family house with compound, and yet we are facing a challenge of high population and shortage of land. I think maybe our invited guests may want to put in a word or two based on the question. Town Planner Ashiru.
Hello.
Hello, sir. I think we
Yeah.
have a question here, that how can we encourage high density in some of our culture when most people wishes to build with big compound, and yet we are facing a challenge of high population and shortage of land?
The first one has to do with what I said in one of my recommendations, and I will read it out again. I said, I'm trying to look for it, sir. Sorry, just a minute. Okay. All right. I said there should be less effort of classification in the provision of infrastructure facilities and amenities, number one. Number two is that there should be less effort in classification. Now, we are all aware that while we are in school, the training is that we have a layout that consists of low-income earner, high-income earner, and middle-income earner. But how many of us can say that we actually have that now? It's all about luxury apartment, luxury estate, luxury land. We are taking care of only a particular class of people. So planning now is based on the highest bidder takes it. And that's why planners and government agencies should adopt a policy that will be in line of provision for all, irrespective of what you have or what you earn. How many of us could afford the low cost, I pronounce low cost housing facilities provided? How low cost are those costs actually? And somebody approved that, somebody designed that, and what do we now have? We have the development of slums, squatter settlements, because what is provided by that planner and approved by that government agency is unaffordable. I don't know if I've answered the question.
I think you have nailed a lot of points there, and I want to believe maybe that will answer the question of the participants. So without also, so let's take the question from Mr. Aliu Adebayo so that we can wrap there. Mr. Aliu Adebayo, you can unmute now to ask.
All right. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, my moderator, sir. And I just want to say something about what the last speaker said to emphasize the catch them young syndrome, because one of the issues we have now is lack of interest in planning to even begin with within students of secondary school and the likes. So we need to actually make it attractive from elementary schools, through high schools, because what I see is that it's popularity of professions like medicine, law, engineering, and the likes that makes the kids want them as a preferred profession without even considering if they are able to actually thrive in that space. So now, if we try to do a kind of publicity amongst the elementary school pupils through secondary school, then even people who do not become town planners, who eventually becomes probably politicians and whatever they become, they would have known about what this thing is about. They would have known and they would have understood it. So whenever town planners come out to talk about, to advise, they will be quick to understand the benefits, and then they'll be able to act. So that is just my own take on.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Can I respond to that, sir?
Yes, very much, sir.
Yeah, let me first appreciate my lecturer, Kale, and then let me appreciate the last question also from the last speaker. I think the problem has to do with our regulatory body. What are we presenting to the people? And how are we presenting it? It's always town planning. What is town planning? When we look at the other professions we talk about, they will say medicine. But under medicine, there are so many professionals involved. We have the dentists, we have the opticians, we have the gynecologists, we have the nursing, we have so many there. Why are we not breaking down physical planning? Why are people attaching physical planning only to red mark? Why are we talking about physical planning responsible for economic planning, for social planning? Are we actually exposing the other benefits involved in town planning? Or we only showcase government agency as planning? Because the bane of the problem over the year is that town planning is seen or viewed to be red marking and demolition. And that is not the issue here, because that is just a government agency doing its job. What town planning does is more than that, and we don't even involve in that. It is town planners engage in government agencies that do that. So the other aspects of planning, the other arms of planning in the academics, in how many town planners focus now on optic fiber planning for telecommunications? How many planners talk about pipeline planning, infrastructural planning? And I think for us to catch them young, we should show them the positive side of the profession, the merits, so that they don't see only the red mark and demolition as town planning. Most of us, while we are co-opted into the profession, we find it difficult even to explain what the course is all about. And I think the academics has a lot to do in this regard, in what they do in their yearbook or adverts. The institute has a lot to do in this regard, and individuals has a lot to do. If I might ask my brothers and sisters on this platform, how many of you have promoted your profession today? How many of you share it on your status that town planner provide these solutions to this problem? And that awareness and publicity start from us. It starts from me. It starts from you, rather than waiting for government or any other person to do that. On our Facebook pages, what are we putting there for the profession? Are we telling them that it is planning that is responsible for the development in Lagos? Are we telling them that it is planning that was responsible for the Ibadan development that we witnessed in those years, having the first television station, having Cocoa House, having the Liberty Stadium? Are we projecting ourselves from the positive angle to the public, or we only come out to say those houses should be demolished? And by the way, those demolitions that we make effort to shout at and promote is just a government agency carrying out its own duty, and it's not only plan. A campus plan is what we do. And those are the things that all of us from now on need to project to the public to make it attractive. If people know that 90% of their problem can be solved by a physical planner, then they will embrace it more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Town Planner Bengashiru, for the insightful addition again, because it is imperative for us to know that we need to carry our own cross. We need to engage in public awareness. We need to let people know about what we do, about what we are made of. And as corroborated by Mrs. Toyin Bulukaleye, he said, unbounding planning, as Town Planner Ashiru, may be a solution to advocacy. So thank you very much. So in the light of, I think Mrs. Omobolanle, Tamplana Omobolanle Akiola has a comment. Can you briefly give your comment so that we can
Yes,
wrap up? Yeah.
it's just in addition to what Tamplana Ashiru said and what Tamplana Toyin Bolokale said about unbounding planning, and I think and also about introducing it at the most basic level. You want the mentality of being a doctor came to you as a mind, probably in primary school. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. For example, children doing career day. Like, I'm a town planner, and my kids are like, okay, mommy, what do you do? That's just the thing. And I'm like, oh, this is what I do, this is what I do. Start explaining to them at home. But their friends in school don't know about it. So now I feel if there is a way it can be introduced into the curriculum. We were taught first aid in primary school. We were taught safety measures in primary school. We were taught community engagement in social studies. Some of these things we learned before. We were taught budgeting in school, which is also a profession. So I guess if there is a way urban planning can be brought in the most basic way, maybe introduced into a subject as a topic, I think it will really go a long way. So even no matter the profession you have an idea about urban planning, you know it exists. Because sometimes you say urban planning, people are like, what's that one? What are you talking about? So if it is introduced in the most basic way from primary school, probably into the syllabus, into a topic, into a subject or something, maybe civic education, it is infused into your DNA from childhood. You know there is something called urban planning. So irrespective of any profession you are, you work with that mentality. The way you work with the mentality of first aid education, the way you work with the mentality of safety precautions, urban planning too is infused in you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the addition again, Ms. Omobolanle Akinola. So I think Town Planner Onaja Benjamin has a comment. I think you can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Town Planner Onaja Benjamin from Kaduna State, Nigeria. We have actually said a lot, and I'm very impressed with the listening so far. From our speaker, Town Planner Ashiru, and our panelists. We've actually done very well. But there's one thing I want to draw to our attention. Town planning, either we like it or not, has come to stay in Nigeria and globally. We cannot just compare ourselves or start comparing ourselves with professions like architecture, medicine. Medicine is as old as the earth itself. Architecture have been here for over 1960s, 70 something. Town planning as a course or as a profession just came to be 1988. So sometimes when I discuss with colleagues and they will be like, we are not doing this, we are not doing that, see what architects are doing, see what engineers are doing. I'll just ask them a question. We are just barely, we have not up to 40, just 36 years in existence in Nigeria. And let's not forget so soon, town planning in Nigeria did not start from the ground. We started at master's level. So we are actually the speed at which I'm to an extent, I'm very happy and I'm marveled. Before now, we don't have young planners being into consultancy. I can tell you, if you have a good record now, to a good percentage, people who we have currently practicing planning are young planners who are consultants. And I'm very happy because that is a plus and there's a future for planning. So we should not be in a rush to say, oh, we are not doing this, we are not doing that, because comparing ourselves with professions that have been existing, honestly, we are doing very, very well. If we continue with this tempo we are taking, I'm sure we'll go beyond the sky. Thank you very much.
For the addition, thank you for the addition. Thank you to everyone that has made a contribution, that have put in their
hand
voice.
is up. A hand is up. Not you.
We have, I think. Okay, do you have anyone that still have
yes,
comments? I
not
think
you. Tampana not you is on.
Okay, Tamplana not you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Tamplana, thank you so much for your insightful comments on the topic that was presented to us. Majorly, what everybody has said, we have talked well. But the only thing that I want every one of us to understand is that politics can never be diverged from town planning, especially in developing countries. And this politics, sincerely, we really need to go back and check it very well. Because almost town planning, everything that we are doing is related to politics. If you will see that in developing countries, most of town planners, they are in the government parastatals. And now, let me go straight to government parastatals. You know, government parastatals, you will see town planners, they don't want to go to other parastatals. So what I mean is that we have other MDAs where town planners also supposed to be there and exercise their activities. But you know, okay, let me take Lagos State as an example. When they post any town planner to another MDA, different from fiscal planning, most of the time they see it as a punishment. And this is where from my own perspective, this is where we really need to look at things. Because by the time you are mingling, by the time you are working along with other professionals, this is where they will now understand the kind of knowledge that a town planner has. For instance, I'm working in a real estate, and sincerely, I'm working with, I have professionals in that real estate. I have engineers, I have architects that I'm working with. I want to tell you the truth that if I'm talking in that firm, sincerely, they used to give some priority to me. What I'm just telling you is that we have knowledge as town planners, but to speak, we are not vocal enough, and we are afraid of exercising what we have as ability, and it is a problem. So this is just my contribution to it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can I pass a comment on the two speaker?
Yes, you can. Sir.
Let me start from Tampana Ben, my Cardinal State. I appreciate you, sir. But we can't. There's no room for comparison. I believe that we can do better than what we are doing now, and that's why we need to find our voice. And some courses came after urban regional planning, and they are doing well. Estate management is one of it. The building societies are doing well. So we are doing well, but we can do better. And that's what I will suggest based on what you just said, that we don't need to rush. Let us rush. I want us to rush. We need to rush so we can get more. That is number one. So Planner Northview, yes, it's about projection. It's about what are we projecting to the people that we can do. You said it, we want to stay in physical planning to red mark in the ministry. Who says town planner is not needed in the Ministry of Works? Who said town planner is not needed in the Ministry of Housing? Who said town planner is not needed in the Ministry of Bureau of Lands and Survey? Who said town planner is not needed in the Ministry of Environment? But they are not asking us because they covered up their zones. Are we actually seeking and finding a way to explain why we need to be there? I know why I'm saying this. We have a political leader that I work with who make a move that town planners should be on the board of signage. And I am opportune to be there, representing town planners on that board of signage in the state. He also moved that town planner should be on the board of Waste Management Authority. And the town planner is also there. How many of us are trying to go to unfamiliar terrain to claim what actually belongs to physical planning? And I think that is what we should advocate more for. On the issue of course curriculum, I think we need to, after this, maybe we need to form another webinar whereby we will invite the regulatory body. TOPREC has a role to play. What are they doing? I think Tamplana needs to find their voices or their voice by challenging those that should do what they should do. The advocacy part of planning is almost zero. Have you seen planners taking government to court, challenging government action in court because of wrong implementation? Something happened in Oyo State, whereby there is a conversion. Are we in court challenging that action of the governor? A governor just increased revenue for planning permit. Who is that town planner challenging that decision in court? There is a regional plan from a government and another government abandoned it. Who is that town planner taking that government to court that you have no right to ignore a plan provided for the state? It should be about master plan, like I said, not the master's plan. It should be about what is in the book, not what they wish from their thinking. And it is time that the advocacy part of planning should be in the forefront, championing the cause of the planning profession. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, our guest speaker, for the addition. Thank you so much. I think at this point we can move to the next stage of next agenda of the event, as we don't have anybody with his hand raised. So also, but before we move on, I would like to also mention that we had the presence of the president of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, the Young Planners Forum, which is one of the co-organizers of this event, but I think he left already. If you are still here, Town Planner Tunde Adegbega, can you signify and let us know if you have a comment or addition before we move to closing remark? Yeah, I think he left already because he had to join another meeting, but I had to mention
Yeah,
that
I'm here.
Oh,
Good
you're still
evening.
with us. Oh, good, thank you. So do
Yeah.
you have like any comment or addition before we proceed? Yeah.
Yes, naturally, I've been on wheels this morning. I just parked my car now, so I wish to comment. So thank you very much. You see, I want to say a very big thank you to Town Planner Olubenga Ashiru, the immediate past National Secretary, the head of Town Planners. Now, good evening, sir. And I want to say thank you to Pisonia for collaborating with Young Town Planners Forum of Nigerian Staff Town Planners. Thank you very much. I want to dwell more on what Tamplanofi said about the changing of curriculum of the secondary schools, because if town planning can be included in their curriculum, at least if they are not studying town planning in future, they will still have some knowledge about town planning, and whatever position they are occupying, they will have that town planning knowledge, and it will assist them in decision making. And for town planning to excel in Nigeria, I think the town planners need knowledge. Without knowledge, there is nothing we can do. The town planner needs to network with other professionals. That without networking, there is nothing we can do. This is what we have seen coming in Young Town Planners Forum, YPF, of Nigerians of Town Planners, that we have engaged in knowledge sharing among ourselves so that we can be well equipped for future challenges. And we have also networked so within all the build professionals so that we can relate very well to prepare ourselves for future challenges. So once more, I have to say thank you to our guest speaker and all the panelists. Champlan Akiola from Lagos State is representing Young Plans from here today. I was listening to your explanation about seeing the town as the patients that town planners are treating, that the town planners are the doctors of the environment. That illustration alone is very, very feasible, that other people can see town planning from that angle. And also, town planner said about breaking the physical planning into levels. What is town planning? What is physical planning? It needs to be broken down into levels. People can understand that in town planning, there are so many other lines that you can follow. Like when we are having one of the MCPDP in Ogun State at Abeokuta, one of the professors that presented the paper said that they are looking for marine space planner. In all sub-Sahara of Africa, they only got one in South Africa, marine space planner. That was the first time I'll be hearing such thing. Can you see? And it's a branch of town planning. So it is time for ourselves to start knowing that town planning has so many areas where we can delve into. One is heritage planning and preservation. We can preserve our heritages and we can also plan for them. It's quite different to development control. So development control is just a single line in town planning. Just a single line in town planning. There are so many others. And as rightly suggested by town planner Ashiru, that we should hold another webinar, that we can break break town planning down into so many parts. So people that did not know anything about town planning can now know that town planning has so many areas where we can delve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Young Planners Forum. Also, I would like to also mention that we have the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner National Treasurer, Town Planner Anofi, here with us. We appreciate your presence and thank you for joining in. So I think we have spent a lot of time, and I think it's time to move to the next point on the agenda, which is the vote of thanks. So I'd like to thank everyone for your active participation in today's webinar. Thank you so much. So on behalf of the City Visionary Initiative for Urban Development and also the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Young Planners Forum, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to all who made this event possible. So first of all, I would like to start with our invited guests, Town Planner Ulubenga Ashiru. Thank you for your inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. Your insight and translation of the outcome of the World Urban Forum into actionable steps for developing countries has been invaluable, and also the comments, responses, additions about how we can make urban planning bigger on the map, how we can make our voices heard, and how we can take charge of the development of our environment. is very mind-blowing, and recommendation on organizing future webinar to tackle some of these core challenge in as regards projecting the image of urban planning is well noted, and we will very much act on that. Also, I would like to thank our wonderful panelists, Planner Grace Kimaru, Planner Julian Sanzima, and Town Planner Omobolanle Akinola on your thoughtful moderation and contribution to the discussions. Your expertise added significant depth to today's dialogue. Thank you very much for your addition. Also, to our wonderful audience, thank you for your participation. Thank you for your active participation in terms of your question and your engagement during the Q&A section, which truly made this conversation enriched. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of the organizing team from the City Visionaire Initiative for Urban Development and also the Nigerian Institute of Town Planner, the Young Planners Forum, arms of it. Your hard work behind the scene ensure the success of these events, and you are highly appreciated. And on these notes, I will like to move to the adjournment of today's event. So as we conclude, we hope that today's event has provided our participants insights and actionable strategies on the topic of discourse, which is the World Urban Forum. So let's continue this conversation and work collaboratively to move from resolution to reality in urban development. So we can connect with the City Visionaire. We have our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook handle, which is at City Visionaire on the screen. Also, our LinkedIn, which is City Visionaire, can also be, we can connect and keep the conversation going, and also to be in tune with the latest development, latest training that is organized by the organization. Also, the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners Young Planners Forum, you can reach us on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter as well. So thank you once again for joining us. Please feel free to stay connected with us through our platforms for future events and initiatives. So this officially marks the end of today's webinar. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.